Hi, my name is Naomi Kilbreth, and I am a Christian clinical herbalist and a registered herbalist with the American Herbalist Guild. I would like to thank Mason for having me here on the HerbRally show today. I appreciate getting to know some new people and share some of what I am passionate about. And that includes working with aromatherapy for emotional support. So you can learn more about what I do by visiting laureltreewellnessllc.com or by finding my podcast, the Family Herbalism Podcast, on any major platform. And today we're going to be talking about one of the ways that I support my clients, which is in making aromatherapy blends for emotional support. And I love doing this. We're going to get into some of the specifics in a little bit. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about what essential oils are. I'm going to guess that a lot of you do have some background in the science and history of essential oils. You've probably, if you've done any research on essential oils at all, you've probably got a bit of a foundation on that. And so we're going to spend more time talking about how to actually blend them for emotional support, resources. But I would like to share a little bit about what they are, just so you have some background. Essential oils are actually not true oils. They are a liquid mixture of the plant's volatile and aromatic compounds. And the reason that we use the word essential when we're talking about essential oils is not that they are unable to be made by the body, which is where we usually get the word essential from, as in essential minerals or essential amino acids, but because it refers to the essence of the plant. And so it was originally referred to as a plant's essence, and then it became known as essential. And the reason that we refer to them as oils is because very often they have a viscous or oily property to them, but they're not actually a true oil in the sense of being a fat or amino acid based product. They are literally just a liquid mixture of these aromatic compounds that are coming from the plants that are usually steam distilled, but sometimes they are pressed. They do have some similarities to actual oils in that they are hydrophobic, so they do not mix well with water. And there are some other similarities, but they are quite different actually from true oils. And so we're going to be talking specifically about emotional health. Essential oils can be worked with for many benefits, many different purposes, including physical symptoms. But I find that they are very helpful when it comes to emotional health because they take advantage of the fact that our sense of scent is directly connected to the limbic centers of our brain, which house the amygdala and the hippocampus, which are responsible for the emotions and the memories that our bodies store. And this is why smells can have such a profound impact on our emotions and why they can be associated with memories. So when you smell something that is familiar to you, you will have an automatic response that is ingrained in your body because of that sense of smell being directly connected to those memory centers. And this is also why smells can have a profound impact on our emotional responses and behaviors to our environment. And we can use this and take advantage of this to actually rewire our responses to people and to situations. The other parts of the limbic system are also responsible for regulating the autonomic nervous system, regulating hormones, blood pressure, heart rate, and even our ability to focus our attention in the direction that we want it to go. And so there are a lot of different things and aspects to our body that our sense of smell can impact just through that center. So there was a study that was published last year, which actually it's almost 2023. So as I'm recording this, so 2021, there was a study published that showed that essential oils have the ability to positively impact our brains, partly because many oils trigger neurogenesis. In other words, they actually stimulate the growth of new neurons and help to make connections to other neurons. And this simply affirms what we already understood about essential oils, that they can help us to make new connections and see the world in a new way. And this can be especially supportive in cases of post-traumatic stress disorder or other expressions of trauma response, where a person feels and behaves a specific way to specific stimuli, and they want to create new ways of doing things, but they feel like they're not able to, like they're stuck in a rut of always having to respond automatically a certain way to those situations. And so I have actually worked personally with essential oils for this type of healing. And I was able to see without a shadow of a doubt that it can be very instrumental in changing a person's life when they want to heal and they want to move on and create a new way of being in the world. So I love making custom blends for specific clients because of the potential impact that it can have on that person's life. We know that there are lots of blend options out there that are pre-made, or you can read a book on aromatherapy where they will recommend specific combinations of plants for certain emotions, and those can be really helpful. And I will actually share a few recipes that I've created myself toward the end of this episode. But I also find that making a custom blend that is fine-tuned to a specific person has the potential to be much more powerful for that person. And you know that you've hit on the right blend when you watch them grow this huge smile on their face and they take in this deep breath and they sigh, and you just know you did something really good for them. And it's so rewarding to be a part of that process where you just know they're on a new path now, and this blend was specifically made for them. So I find that in these cases where you're making a custom blend for someone, that it's really important to incorporate that person's sense of scent and not just your own, because everyone's associations with smells are going to be very different. What you have positive associations with or negative associations with is going to be much different than your clients. So, for example, you might love the smell of geranium, and your client may very much despise the smell of geranium. And so, part of making a custom blend is recognizing that you want to incorporate this person's own individual response to smells, and not just your own. So you'll want to develop your own awareness of and understanding of how smells blend and how to incorporate things that generally smell good together and also work well together as partners chemically. But you're also going to want to keep in mind how that's going to be received by the person that's going to be working with that blend. And so the more you do that, the more you practice, the more you will come to understand how partnerships are made with essential oils. And you'll even be able to rely entirely on that knowledge and the response of the person to those individual smells. So I'll be teaching you how to do that today. But I was able to practice this, and it kind of an interesting little story. After I experienced COVID for the first time, I lost my sense of smell. And that made it a little bit tricky because I was going to be, helping these clients to work with essential oils, and I couldn't smell them. So I basically was working blind as an aromatherapist, where I did not know how this combination of oils was going to smell. But by really focusing on the response of the client to each of those smells, we were able to make blends that they loved. And I had no idea how they smelled together until after the fact. And I got my smell back. Really, blending is an art. It takes practice, and it won't work out perfectly every time. And that's okay. The more you practice, the easier it will get. It does take practice, I think, more so to make combinations that will be beneficial to whole groups of people or that are targeted to certain situations and that will smell good to the majority of people. I think it's actually easier to make custom blends because you are fine tuning it to the person that is sitting right there at the table. If you're making a general combination that's going to be good for a wide variety of people, you have to be able to practice looking at the chemical constituents and the plant families and reading about smells that go well together. But in general, oils that do have similar chemical constituents or which come from the same plant families usually blend well together. I also find that oils coming from plants that have similar actions will also blend well. So if you put 3 different nervine oils together or antispasmodics or anti-inflammatories, you're generally going to get a positive impact just the first time. Or oils that are rich in limonene or pinene, you put those together. Oils from the mint family generally go really well together. The good news is that there are very few situations where oils should not be blended together for safety reasons. In fact, the majority of oils either have a neutral impact, meaning they're going to work independently of each other, but at the same time, and really don't change the impact that either one has on the situation. Or they have an additive effect where they work together and they support each other and they actually become more helpful together than they were individually. Sometimes it does matter which ones are applied first. So, for example, massage therapists who work with aromatherapy have the benefit of being able to apply oils individually. And so they can choose which ones will be applied first. When you're making a blend for someone, especially one that is going to go into a diffuser or onto aromatherapy jewelry or be applied with a roller bottle, we don't have that benefit of being able to layer them. So we still can be careful about which oils we put into the blend first in order to get a specific effect. Something to be aware of as you practice. So these are important things to be aware of when recommending oils to people. Just knowing that they are generally going to be safe as far as combinations is really encouraging. But you also want to make sure that there's not going to be any drug interactions. So you want to ask questions of your clients to make sure that they're not taking any medications that would be contraindicated for these essential oils or vice versa. You want to make sure that they don't have any allergies. One thing that I've heard quite a bit is that because essential oils do not contain any proteins, that it is impossible to develop an allergic reaction to those oils. And that may be technically true. However, I think that our bodies are used to following certain pathways. So if a person is allergic to lavender, for example, or lavender scents or the lavender, the whole plant, then their body's still going to react as though lavender essential oil is an allergen, even if it doesn't have anything in it that could technically cause an allergy to develop. So still have to be cautious there. People can definitely have allergic reactions to essential oils. Also, you want to be careful of sensitivity. Some people require more of a remedy or less of a remedy than others. And so you want to understand your particular client and how sensitive they are so that you know how diluted their remedy should be, keeping in mind their age and other factors that could influence how sensitive, how quickly they will respond to an essential oil. Obviously, our motto should be first do no harm. So you have to at least have a basic understanding of essential oils and aromatherapy before you begin working with them professionally. But these are just some basic guidelines. I'm not going to go into the specific of all of those things to be cautious about, because I think it's something that requires really more than a brief podcast episode or YouTube video. It's important to do your research, and I will include a few resources at the end of this lesson that I would encourage you to check out for more education around that. It should also go without saying that we are using pure, unadulterated essential oils that have been ethically harvested and kept in safe storage. Number one, if you're shopping for essential oils and you look at a shelf full of oils and they're all the same price, turn around and shop somewhere else, because there is no way that essential oils can ever have equal financial value, because it is impossible to grow them all at the same rate and have the same levels of essential oils within certain plants. Some produce more oils than others. There's many reasons why the financial value cannot be the same. So if you see them all listed the same, you know that there's something wrong with these oils. One quick test that you can do to ensure your oils are just oils and that they have no additives is to put a drop on a piece of white printing paper. So it may take several hours, but because these are volatile, they will evaporate entirely and leave no mark on the paper. So if you can still see residue on the paper the next day, that bottle had other ingredients in there, and it's going to be potentially not as safe, because you don't know what they used or what people might react to. And also, I feel that if a company is comfortable adding ingredients to decrease the cost, they probably also felt comfortable using other business practices that could compromise the safety and quality of your oil. So just move on to another company if you discover that. When it comes to blending, so now we're going to get into the blending aspect here. Some people use what's called the 4 classification system, and this gives a certain percentage of the blend to oils based on one of 4 categories. The first is the personifier, then you have the enhancer, then the equalizer, and then the modifier. And each one has its own meaning, and there are various essential oils that are grouped into each of these classifications. They're fun names, and it is a popular method of blending, so you can find all kinds of resources on this online. But I prefer the simpler method of blending using notes, which is what I'll be describing here as I'm talking about blending and making recipes for a custom blend. The notes system reminds me of the triangle blending formula for whole herbs, which probably most of you are familiar with. In this case, you blend about 50 to 80%, of the blend. 50 to 80% is the primary action herb that addresses the primary complaint. And then you add another 10 to 20% of a supportive herb that is generally a tonic to the organ system that's affected. And then you would add 10 to 20% of a potentiator or an activator herb that has an affinity for that organ system as well. So that's a very common basic blending formula that many herbalists are familiar with. And the notes system is very similar to that. So working with herbs first, it just felt natural to move into this system of working with essential oils. Also, another aspect that I really like about this system is that it's all about the power of 3. So many of you are probably aware that the body responds really well to groups of 3. My mom went to massage therapy school about 20 years ago, and they taught the students there that when you're doing physical manipulation of a person's body, they will respond more quickly and easily when you do sets of 3. So there's patterns and repetitions to these movements, to lymphatic massage and to releasing muscles. And so even in these cases, we see that the body responds well when you repeat things 3 times, or you use a group of 3 different motions, or in this case, 3 different essential oils or types of essential oils. And so this takes advantage of that power of three system as well. Well, what are notes? A way, uh, a way to describe it would be that they are a categorization system of oils based specifically on their volatility and their viscosity, which means basically how easy do they evaporate and how thin or thick are they? So to maximize that power of three, we're going to choose one oil, at least one oil from each of those groups. And we're going to talk about what those notes are. But there are three groups of notes, the top, the middle, and the base. And so you'll use at least one oil from each of those in order to really emphasize that power of three. And when you do that, they really complement each other, and when they blend well, they're kind of like notes in a song where they create a harmonious aroma that is more likely to be supportive to a person. So top notes, middle notes, and base notes. The top notes usually come from the fruiting bodies of plants. These are thin and light and very striking smells. Thin and light being the viscosity and the volatility. They evaporate quickly. So when you take a deep breath of your blend, the first thing that you're going to smell is that most top note. It can be a very potent smell. It kind of like just hits you when you smell it. Things like orange and bergamot, grapefruit, lemon, and lemongrass are all examples of top note essential oils. And these would make up about 5 to 20% of most blends if you're using the note system. The middle notes make up the heart of the formula. So these are like the active herb that you would put into a blend using the triangle formula. And these really create the body of the blend. So after the top notes evaporate, you'll smell these more strongly, and they will last the longest, or be the part that you smell the longest, I should say. So you get the immediate satisfaction of the top notes, and they sort of meet the most prominent need that you have. And then once you've taken a deep breath and you've been able to chill a little bit, the middle notes bring a deeper level of support for a longer period of time. They're often more soft smelling, so not quite as striking and noticeable. And they usually come from things like flowers and leaves and roots. And they make up 50 to 80% of most blends. Examples of these plants would be lavender, cypress, eucalyptus, fir, geranium, helichrysum, marjoram, melaleuca, rosemary, ginger, thyme, oregano, and peppermint. And then we have the base notes. These scents form the foundation of the blend, and because they are the thickest and heaviest essential oils out of the blend, they may not even be noticed for several minutes after the oil is applied. They do tend to become more pleasant over time, so it's kind of nice that you have these other smells that you smell first, and then by the time you get to the base notes, they're ripe and ready to be smelled. And they sort of fill in the gaps that are left by the higher notes with their depth. These often come from resins and barks and roots, and they have an earthy sense and feel, and often promote a sense of grounding to a person. They would only make up 5 to 20% of the blend. It really doesn't take a whole lot of them. And that's probably a good thing, because very often these are the ones that are going to be more valuable, and you want to recognize them as being a bit more on the precious side, since they are harder to ethically harvest and collect, and they can be more expensive too. And these would include things like frankincense and sandalwood, myrrh, vanilla, and vetiver. Some oils, I should say, can fall into more than one note category. So they're a little more flexible and can be used as either one. For example, basil and fennel could be either a top or middle note. And clary sage, rose, and ylang ylang can be used either as a middle note or a base note. So depending on what other oils are chosen, these can be put into the category that will help to round out your blend. I usually start with 20% top notes, 50% middle notes, and 30% base notes. These are not the exact numbers that are generally recommended when you're working with the note system, but I find that it's easier to start with this as a foundation and then adjust to the person's smell. And it might take a couple of tries to get the right combination, and that's okay. The end result may be a completely different combination or groups of percentages than when you started, and that's okay too. There's no rule that says you have to stick with certain percentages or else. It really comes down to what is going to work for that person. So, to get at the right blend for a person, the first thing that I do is listen to their story and gather signs so that I understand what their goal is and what parts of their body need balancing. So, I'm going to be watching their body language. I'm going to check their tongue. I'm going to listen to their history. I'm going to listen to what their goals are, what symptoms are bothering them the most. And then I'm going to choose about a dozen oils that I know are likely to be a good fit for those signs and symptoms. But that doesn't mean that they will be a good fit for that particular person at this time. So I'll choose these dozen that I know I can make a good blend from. And then I have the client smell their way through them, categorizing them into one of three groups: the must have group, the absolutely not group, and the meh group, which is sort of a maybe, probably not, but we'll maybe possibly draw from them. I do my best to work entirely from the group of oils that they love, but sometimes to create a more well-rounded group or to work with oils that I still feel strongly about for them, I'll choose from the maybe group. But I never choose herbs from the group of oils that they were completely opposed to, because just as I feel that a person will be drawn to plants that they need, I also feel that they will be opposed to plants that are not a good fit for them at that time. And so I put those right back into my container. Once I have a group of 3 to 5 oils that are going to be a good fit with each other, I order them according to the notes, starting with my base percentages and then mix with a bit of coconut oil and have the client smell it. And this is where it starts to get fun. So I watch closely for their response, looking for signs that they are maybe concerned about making me happy and they're just hesitating, or facial expressions that indicate that they love it or they hate it or it's not quite on the mark. And I will make adjustments based on their feedback until we get to the whole body response that says, yes, this is the one. And you can see that happen. There's no hesitation. It is very obvious when you've gotten the right blend. So, how do we use these oils? So, we've got this blend, we have this recipe. What do we do with it? Well, once you come up with a blend, the oils can be combined in an aromatic diffuser, which are very easy to find. They can be blended together in a dark glass container and then put drop by drop onto a pillow to help a person to relax and sleep at night. Or you could put it on the bottom of the shower before you start the shower. So then you have maybe it's a refreshing blend that will help them to feel confident and encouraged for the day. Or it could be, they could be applied to aromatherapy jewelry, so it's not directly on their skin. That works really well for those who are a little more sensitive than others. I like to put them in a roller bottle with fractionated coconut oil and then apply them or have the client apply them to their pulse points behind the ears or over the heart, especially when we're talking about an aromatherapy blend for emotional support. So we're talking about places where they can smell it easily and possibly places that, like the heart center, that will be most specific to their symptoms and their needs. The cool thing is they can also be combined with acupressure and applied intentionally to specific points for specific needs as well. I do think it's important to note that I find that the right blend will only be perfect for a short season. They may always like that blend, but it's more likely that they will only crave it for a couple of weeks, maybe as much as a couple of months, and then it won't have the same impact anymore because it's met the needs that it was created 4. I know that some people, when they're just getting used to essential oils or teas and tea blending, may be discouraged when a tea or an essential oil blend that was working really well for a while is suddenly not doing the trick anymore. But I find that to be encouraging because all healing comes in layers. And if we're always treating things with the same tools, it means that we're not working through those layers because every layer needs a new remedy. And so when you know that an essential oil was working really well for a person and then all of a sudden it's not anymore, most likely it's because you've worked through that layer and you're ready for the next step. At that point, they may want an updated custom blend, or they may not need another blend for a while. Maybe they want a completely different sort of tool. So you'll want to check in with the client and see how they feel about it moving forward. So again, most of the time I like to make custom blends for people, but there are some blends that I have designed for certain groups in mind, and these blends are fun to create for people either as a diffuser blend that groups of people can enjoy together, or when keeping a few stock options on hand for drop-in clients who need some support. So I'm going to share with you 8 sample blends that I've developed, and I would encourage you to make adjustments to them. So if you have a few of the ingredients that I mentioned, but you don't have all of them, feel free to adjust, to test it out, see how it works for you, and then maybe use them as a base for practicing with clients and then making adjustments based on their own smell. The first one is for feelings of intensity, where a person really needs to maybe take things less seriously and just kind of chill out. I actually designed this for a classroom with kids who had high energy and were just living very intensely. And so this was requested of me by a teacher, and I created it for them. And so in this diffuser blend, you would put 6 drops of lemongrass, 4 drops of petitgrain, 2 drops of cedarwood, and 2 drops of vetiver. So this actually comes out to 14 drops, which is more than enough for most diffusers. So you could actually cut that in half. At this particular percentage, these percentages, you could put that right into a roller bottle and top it off with coconut oil. Or you could cut that in half and put that into a diffuser, like a small room diffuser. So that was 6 drops of lemongrass, 4 drops of petitgrain, 2 drops of cedarwood, and 2 drops of vetiver. My next blend is, I called it happiness. It was for a person who was having severe anxiety that was triggering anger. So that's one of the interesting things about emotions, is that there is usually a root cause. We don't just suddenly have strong feelings. They are there for a reason. And this person was feeling anxious about things that were not within their control. And so it was causing feelings of anger. And so I created this happiness blend, which calls for 3 drops of bergamot, 6 drops of cassia, 5 drops of lavender, and 4 drops of myrrh. And that was designed to put into a roller bottle. Next, I have a blend which was also created for a classroom. This blend was for communication skills, especially listening and being willing to have a back and forth conversation rather than just speaking one's own mind, and focusing entirely on that. And so it just promotes this empathetic back and forth ability to communicate. And it calls for 4 drops of spearmint, 2 drops of petitgrain, 6 drops of coriander, and 2 drops of patchouli. And so again, that comes to 14 drops. So you could cut that into half for a small room diffuser. The next one is for compassion. So this is being able to see another person for who they are and appreciate them where they are, and want to understand where they're coming from. And so this one has 6 drops of lime, 4 drops of coriander, 4 drops of cinnamon, and 2 drops of patchouli. The next one is for feelings of anxiousness. So that could be a temporary thing, or it could be more of a chronic, persistent feeling. Again, I like to say that there's it's difficult to just hand someone an essential oil roller bottle and say, this is all you need, because that's not true. If someone is experiencing anxiety or depression or these strong emotions, and they are interfering with their life, their ability to live normally, then they really need to have a number of tools available to them, including a supportive community, people that they can learn from and share with, and be supported by, and having breath work exercises, different movement exercises. Journal work can be very helpful. There's all kinds of resources out there. So this is not complete, but essential oils, again, can be very supportive and be a really great part of a complete plan for that person. So back to the recipe. For anxious feelings, we have 6 drops of lemon, 9 drops of ylang ylang, 3 drops of chamomile. And then I have 2 different recipes for fears. The first is for a fear of failure. So perhaps this is a person who's going to be taking on a new task, perhaps a new job, perhaps an upcoming test, something going on that feels like a lot of responsibility, and they want to make sure that they do their best, but also not holding on to anxious feelings that are going to just not be helpful. And so for fear of failure, we have 10 drops of lavender, 10 drops of ylang ylang, and 5 drops of sandalwood. The second recipe for fear is for fear of others' opinions. It helps a person to create better, stronger boundaries where they're not quite as concerned about what another person thinks, and they're even if they have an awareness of another person's opinions, it's not defining their own decisions, which is really, really important. And so this calls for 10 drops of cypress, 10 drops of jasmine, and 5 drops of helichrysum. And then finally, for the 8th sample recipe, we have focus. So for this one, it could be that there are a lot of things to focus your attention on, and you can't quite decide where to direct your attention. And so for this one, we have 6 drops of lemon, 8 drops of Siberian fir, and 2 drops of basil. So again, I highly recommend further research before working with aromatherapy professionally. But this is a really good place to start, especially if you want to experiment for yourself and your family before you begin applying this to your work for others. But there are a lot of great courses out there. So the one that I took was through Heart of Herbs Herbal School. There are also 3 books that I specifically recommend. One is Modern Essentials, which is admittedly made by the Aroma Tools company, which is produced by an essential oil company. But it's a really, really good book that's written by numerous people. And it has some great information in there about layering oils, about blending them using the 4 classifications, as well as notes and safety protocols and lots of basic information. So that's a good handbook to have available. I also really liked Valerie Ann Warwood's book, The Complete Book of Essential Oils and Aromatherapy, which includes numerous recipes and aromatherapy resources for different seasons of life, and for men, women, and children, for pregnancy, all different situations. And then finally, I really liked the book by Melinda J. Freckheisen. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's called Anchor to Your Strengths. And so this one is based on the Strengths Finder test, which is um, it's by Clifton Strengths. And it's a really great test that helps a person to understand their strengths and special abilities. And Anchor to Your Strengths was written so that once you know what your strengths are after taking that test, you can choose essential oils that will help you to support that strength. And it talks about blending them, has sample recipes. It talks about uh, increasing or stimulating that gift, and also calming it down if you want to highlight others. And so it's a really interesting, helpful book to keep in mind for creating blends. Again, to reach out to me and learn more about how I may be able to support you, you can visit my website at laureltreewellnessllc.com. I really appreciate you being here and listening. And thank you again to Mason at HerbRally. Have a wonderful day, everyone.